idle, hidden agendas. It wasn't until after everything fell apart that I began piecing together the truth about my wife, Julia, and her old flame. Looking back, I suppose there were signs, but life was hectic, and I'd never imagined anything sinister could be hiding in those details. We had been together for years, and between raising our child and juggling our day-to-day lives, I thought our relationship was solid, grounded in trust and familiarity. But then the world changed. The pandemic hit, and suddenly, we were trapped inside our small apartment. It was a strange time for everyone, filled with uncertainties. For us, though, it seemed to crack something open that I hadn't realized was even fragile. In the beginning, it felt almost surreal. Like so many others, we adjusted to working from home, managing conference calls, and cooking together. But then, as the weeks turned into months, the strain of confinement began to show. Julia grew restless, her patience thinning as she managed our toddler's tantrums and listened to my constant work calls echoing through our small space. One evening after I'd put our son to bed, she sighed deeply, staring out the window at the empty streets below. "I feel like I'm going mad," she confessed, wrapping her arms around herself. I just need to get out, do something for myself. Sitting here all day is driving me insane." I was empathetic. Truthfully, I felt the same way, but had just gotten used to the cycle of it. "Maybe you could take up a hobby," I suggested. "Something that would give you a break, something you enjoy." Julia thought about it for a while and then, seemingly on a whim, decided on yoga. I thought it was a great idea. She'd always been into wellness and health, but with the added bonus that it would give her some mental reprieve from the constant demands of our child and the pressure of being cooped up. A few days later, she came to me with a glimmer in her eye. "I talked to my friend Mia," she said. "She invited me to her place a couple of times a week to do yoga together. I think it'll really help me feel like myself again." I immediately agreed. It would give her the time she needed to unwind, and Mia was a good friend, a calming, positive influence. So I started staying home alone with our son while Julia went to yoga with Mia. For a while, it seemed to be working. She seemed happier, more energized. I noticed she was paying more attention to her appearance, eating healthier, and working out more. After a few months, Julia was practically glowing. She'd lost a significant amount of weight, almost 10 kilos, and had started dressing differently. Her smile seemed brighter, her steps more confident. She'd even taken to working out at home in addition to her yoga sessions with Mia. I was proud of her and often praised her on her dedication. I believe that this transformation was for our family, or at least for herself. Then one evening, while I was putting away some dishes, Julia's phone buzzed on the counter. Out of habit, I glanced at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number that read, "Can't wait for next time." I froze. She'd never mentioned anyone else besides Mia. Why would she keep another friend a secret? When I confronted her, she brushed it off with a casual laugh. "Oh, that's just an old friend from school," she said with a wave of her hand. "You don't need to worry about it. He's harmless." I wanted to believe her, but a small seed of doubt had already taken root. After all, we were all under stress, and maybe she just needed a friend to talk to, someone from her past. But that tiny seed began to grow with each passing week. One night, as I lay awake in bed, a thought struck me like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't just any friend from school. It was ***, even. Back when we were first dating, Julia had mentioned a high school crush she'd never quite gotten over. She'd laughed about it, claiming it was just a silly infatuation. But now, with everything that was happening, it didn't seem so silly. I decided to confront Mia. I had no reason to believe she'd lie to me, and I wanted to put my mind at ease. I reached out, casually asking her how the yoga sessions were going. Her reply came with an awkward pause. Actually, Julia's only come over a couple of times. She mentioned she was really busy." There it was, the final piece I needed. She'd been lying to me for months, using Mia's name as cover for these so-called yoga sessions. I tried to process it, the betrayal stinging like a fresh wound. That evening, after I'd put our son to bed, I sat Julia down. I know you haven't been going to Mia's, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. I talked to her. She told me you were only there twice. She looked at me, a mixture of surprise and annoyance flickering across her face. Why are you even checking up on me like this? She shot back, folding her arms defiantly. Do you not trust me? I stared at her, astonished by her reaction. Trust you? Julia, you've been lying to me. You're sneaking around, losing weight, hiding messages on your phone, and you expect me to just trust you. For a moment, I thought she might cry, but then she tilted her chin up, a bitter smile playing on her lips. You're overreacting, she sneered, the venom in her tone catching me off guard. Maybe I wanted something more, something exciting. Being here with you, day in and day out, it's suffocating. Maybe I wanted to feel alive. My heart sank. I'd feared she might deny the affair, make excuses, try to explain away the messages, the time spent with this other man. But instead, she threw my suspicions right back in my face. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to reassure me. Instead, she taunted me, made me feel like the fool. In that moment, I realized how little she cared about our family, about our son. This entire time, she'd been hiding her feelings, pretending to be content while secretly indulging in an affair. She had never been happy, never been fully committed, and now I knew she wouldn't change. I got up, pushing my chair back with more force than I'd intended. Fine, I said, my voice trembling. You want to feel alive? Then go. Be with him. But don't expect me to stand by and watch while you tear this family apart. To my shock, she didn't protest. She just looked at me with cold eyes, as if daring me to leave, as if none of this mattered to her. Days passed, filled with strange silence. Our home became a place of resentment and barely concealed contempt. Julia acted as though nothing had happened, carrying on with her new routine, while I stumbled through each day, feeling hollow and used. I was a single parent in every sense but name, caring for our child while she prioritized her clandestine romance. Finally, unable to endure the charade any longer, I moved forward with a separation. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who treated my love and trust like disposable things. Julia didn't seem to care, showing little emotion when the papers arrived. On the day I left our apartment for the last time, I turned to her, my voice heavy with the pain of betrayal. Do you have any regrets, Julia? I asked, hoping to see a flicker of remorse in her eyes. She only shrugged, her indifference like a slap to the face. What's the point? She said. It was bound to happen sooner or later. You just couldn't see it. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Maybe I couldn't see it because I actually cared, I replied. Maybe that's the difference between us. As I closed the door behind me, a bittersweet sense of relief washed over me. I would find a way to move on, to heal for the sake of our child. I could rebuild, piece by piece, until I found peace again. Julia had made her choice, and now I was making mine. In the months that followed, I found a small apartment close to my work, and though the nights were lonely, I was slowly rediscovering myself. I leaned on friends, reconnected with family, and threw myself into creating a new life for me and my son. Each day was a step forward, a step away from the betrayal that had once haunted me. As for Julia, I heard through mutual friends that her affair with Evan hadn't lasted. The passion, the excitement she'd so desperately chased, had fizzled out, leaving her in a place of solitude. I didn't take any pleasure in knowing that. I wished her well, in a way. I hoped she found whatever it was she had been searching for, even if it meant I'd lost her. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the hardest choices we make are the ones that save us. And in the end, I found a strength I hadn't known I possessed, a strength to rebuild, to forgive, and to move forward into a life of my own making.